It's another series win for the Yankees. And I believe that now makes 8 out of 9, with the one series loss having been that 4-game set against the Red Sox at Boston, which at worst should have been a split. But there's a lot going on with the Yankees right now, and it's not all good. In terms of on the field, the great pitching continues from not marquee names. A lot of credit needs to go around there, but the pitching, when the Yankees have done well this year, the pitching has been phenomenal. So when they had that 23-9 stretch earlier, what they're doing now, it is the pitching that has really come through in a major way. On the flip side, the offense, even when they have won, has not done great. And I think that still continues. Another trend that continues in terms of this series was another failed sweep. I'm not going to harp on that too much in a 4-game series. Look, you'll take 3 to 4 any chance you can get. It just happened again. They did lose the last game of a series. So that drops them to probably about 5-11 or 5 maybe I think it's probably 5-11, maybe 5-12 with sweep attempts. I've lost track. It's just been so much. But, when it comes to the Yankees, they are being hit hard by COVID. Anthony Rizzo, the newest member to hit the COVID list, and that's a big loss, obviously. He was a big reason as to why the Yankees had turned it around. So now he's going to be on the shelf for, I'd say, at least a week and a half, something like that. Aroldis Chapman went on the IL with elbow inflammation, and he had been good. We'll talk about what he did in this series. It was shaky, and then he would eventually hit the IL. So, and I'm fine with that. It doesn't sound like it's anything too terrible, and I think they have the wherewithal to make up for that. I definitely believe that. But yeah, so you combine some injuries, and a big one is Gleyber Torres. Gleyber Torres, in the last game of the series, the loss on a steal, seemed like he jammed his thumb or one of his fingers, and Aaron Boone after the game said he's concerned. That's never good. I mean, when he's admitting concern, I got to think that could be an IL trip. And if it is, got to remember Gio Urshela, who in effect is kind of like, I mean, I know Tyler Wade is the de facto backup shortstop, but really if Urshela is healthy, they would likely go Gio at short. But since Urshela's still out with his own hamstring injury, that probably means Tyler Wade is your shortstop. So that's a position where they don't have a whole lot of depth. So the injuries are kind of hitting them hard, like the pre-existing ones, the new ones, the COVID list players. So that is starting to creep in here. But they've been able to withstand that and give them credit. And a lot of players have stepped up. It's kind of crazy. A lot of these contributors are people that no one really even, like outside organization stuff, trade deadline acquisitions, or just guys that were like low in the minor leagues. It's really been a very on-the-fly, different-looking team, and it's just new pieces coming in and out. Luke Voit replaced Anthony Rizzo. So it is, and pretty soon Severino might be coming back. Kluber may not be far back behind him, but then I'm sure other guys will get hurt. It's kind of a revolving door, but the Yankees have depth in certain places, so it's kind of interesting. It's kind of going to be like who's ever healthy at the right time, whether that be COVID or just regular injuries. So it's been interesting, but generally speaking, the momentum is still certainly going, and it feels like it is going to be if now Tampa Bay has not, they could still be caught, but let's just say for now Tampa wins the AL East, which there's a lot of time left, but let's just say they do. You're looking at right now 4 teams, 2 spots. I'm going to assume Houston wins the AL West, and Oakland's I think 2 games behind them. Let's just say it's Tampa, White Sox, Houston for the divisions. Then the 2 spots are up for grabs. You got Oakland, Boston, the Yankees, and Toronto. 2 of those 4 get in. That's going to be a very tough competitive race with a lot of head-to-head matchups as well. The Yankees still play all 3 of those teams. So 61-50 is the record. Their high watermark was 61-49, being 12 over until they lost the last game. But they're playing mostly good baseball. But I laid out everything previously. Let's get into the recap. So Yankees, Mariners coming in with a similar record to the Yankees, coming off a series win at the Rays. But the Yankees this year were able to do the job against Seattle, going 5-2 in the 7 games against the Mariners, which is, and the Yankees have kind of always had the Mariners for a long time, at least for a good, certainly this past decade and even beyond that. It's funny. The last time the Mariners made the playoffs was 2001 with that amazing 116 win team that the Yankees knocked off in the LCS. That's the longest playoff drought. So Yankees certainly these days, of course, there was 1995 where the Mariners had that, pretty unbelievable division series win against the Yankees. But again, in recent memory, this has been a pretty one-sided matchup. But in terms of game one, it was a pitching duel between Tyler Anderson, who was recently acquired, had been on the Pirates this season, the lefty, against Nestor Cortes. And Cortes, again, it wasn't necessarily a smooth outing for Nestor. He's had better, but hey, 5 innings, 2 runs, never going to complain with that. 5 innings, 2 runs, did a really good job. And so, Gary Sanchez also placed on the COVID list, and that was found out before this series began. So if you remember the last game, a lot of housekeeping to do here. Before the last game, Higgy caught Tyone, which made sense at the time because Gary had caught a lot of games. You didn't think anything of it. Turns out Sanchez on the COVID list. That's another guy right there. So Higashioka is the main starter. Rob Brantley recalled as the backup. So again, you got Sanchez on the COVID list, Rizzo on the COVID list, Gio out with a hamstring injury. Gleyber Torres looks like he's about to be out with with some sort of hand-related injury. And that's just on the offensive. That's just on the offensive side. So, we always know with the Yankees it's going to be a struggle in that regard, but it's really hitting them. And fingers crossed that it doesn't really affect them in the win-loss column. But yeah, let's get right into it here. This was the Joey Gallo night. So I think with Joey Gallo, it's been very mixed results since he's been a Yankee. A lot of strikeouts, which was to be expected. I don't love that. I don't. Certainly he is a good defender, has a great arm. He hustled. I mean, there are things about him that's really good, but when you have to start making reasonings for things, it speaks to a bigger problem. And I think that Gallo, that's what he is. The strikeouts are what he is. But with that all being said, this is a major big night for Gallo. His signature moment, if you will. And we'll talk about that. He had a really monster game. So the Yankees would take the lead in the bottom of the second as Stanton, who is really so streaky, but this was a very good series for Giancarlo Stanton. Started to get it going towards the end of the Orioles series and really is kicking into high gear now. So he is one of the most streaky hitters in baseball. Really is. When he's on, he is so tough to stop. So he gets lit a single, then Joey Gallo with a double. Like I said, Gallo with a big night. And then Gleyber gets a sac fly. So Yankees take a 1-0 lead. But Seattle, not to be outdone, would come back with a sac fly of their own. Mitch Haniger ties it up at 1. Then at the top of the fourth, it'd be Kyle Seager. And Kyle Seager, one of the, the good hitters in this lineup, and certainly I felt made his presence felt on both sides of the ball in this series. Kyle Seager with a solo homer, and that gives the Mariners a 2-1 lead. We go to the bottom of the fourth. It's that guy again, Joey Gallo, with a double. Then with 1 out, Rougned Odor gets an infield single, and it's a lucky RBI grandout for Higashioka. So Higashioka comes through at points in this series, doesn't come through at points in this series, but there kind of gets lucky and gets an RBI groundout, and it ties it up at 2. We head to the 6th. Green replaces Cortes, pitches a pretty efficient 6th. And then top of the 7th, though, former Met prospect who I thought had a really good series. He had struggled when he first was brought up, but Jared Kelenic, this is going to be a player. Who knows the extent of it, but you can just tell he's going to be in the major leagues for quite some time. Really impressed by what I saw. And it was a bit of, if I remember correctly, a bit of a cheapie, bit of a Yankee Stadium home run, but Kelenic off of Green, who, if there's one knock on Green, it's certainly that he gives up a lot of home runs. Just kind of the way he pitches. But then he would get, the next 3 guys. So 2 innings of work for Green. It's a 3-2 Mariner league, and then we head to the bottom of the 7th. Another former Met, Paul Sewald, comes in for the Mariners. He's had a fantastic season, but in this one, with 1 out, a 2-out rally. 2-out rally, Judge single, Stanton single, sets the stage for Joey Gallo. First and third, 2 out, down 1. And Gallo hits a majestic high high, sky high fly ball to right. It stays fair and it's gone. Certainly, Yankee Stadium helps in that case, but I mean, it took so long for that ball to go down. Place was going crazy, and the Yankee, his first home run as a Yankee, and it gives the Yankees a 5-3 lead, which they would keep. In the eighth, Zach Britton, who he's getting better, but it's been a struggle. He is not one to get a 1-2-3 inning, but he is someone that can get out of jams because he can get the double play ball. That's exactly what happens here. Is it's first and third, one out, and he gets Terens to ground into a double play. So it keeps a 2-run lead. We head to the ninth, and this would be Aroldis Chapman's last game pitched before heading to the IL. And Chapman didn't have the fastball. He had no fastball command, was completely dependent on the slider. It's a 1-out walk to Kelenic. It is a 2-out infield single by J.P. Crawford. Jonathan Loáisiga was warming up, and I'm not surprised they did this because they catered to Chapman, but they had Chapman pitch to Haniger. And they were going to take, if let's say Chapman walked Haniger, they were going to have Loáisiga face France. Really, they should have had Loáisiga face Haniger, but I wasn't surprised they did this. I don't agree with it. So it ends up being 3-0 on Haniger, and at the time, I'm thinking, all right, you know what? Let him walk, just walk him, and we'll get Loáisiga in for the bases loaded. Then he throws a strike to make it 3-1. And then what do you know? He kind of just hangs the slider because that was all he had was the slider to get over the plate. The fastball was not there. Haniger hits a shot to the left. Gallo was able to catch it at the warning track. I mean, Boone would have been crushed, I think, like media-wise and fan-wise, if Haniger hits a 3-run shot there to give the Mariners the lead, but it's crisis averted. That was not good. High wire act from Chapman, and what do you know? He hits the IL. But Gallo's 3 extra base hits lead the Yankees to a 5-3 victory. A gutsy effort, which we saw a lot in the series. Gutsy comebacks from the Yankees. They've been fighting more in that way lately, where the comeback win stat could be a bit misleading, but in these 3 wins, these are some pretty late comebacks. The latest one being Game 2. Game 2 was a Johnny Holstaff bullpen game. I'm just going to name all the names right now, and none of them pitched more than the most any of them pitched was an inning and 2/3. And that guy who led was the starter, quote unquote, Wandy Peralta. Peralta, Ridings, Rodriguez, Holmes, Licky, Loáisiga, Britton, Green, Abreu. 9 pitchers who only gave up 1 earned run. 1 earned run in 11 innings. That just speaks to right there. And give Matt Blake credit, Harkey, just the fact that they are able to pull that off. That's good stuff. That's really good stuff. So in this one, they were going against Marco Gonzalez, who shut them down. It's been a struggle of a season for Marco Gonzalez, but when you face the Yankees, sometimes you do really well as a pitcher, and that would happen again here. So Gonzalez really cruised on through. And let's just head to the 6th. That's when the first run is scored. And it would go against Clay Holmes, and we'll talk more about Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes has been really good since the trade from the Pirates. Really hard sinker. It seems like the Yankees may have found someone here, and we'll see, because walks were an issue for him in Pittsburgh. He's limited that here with the Yankees completely. The control's been great. A lot of hidden gems the Yankees are finding here in the depths of the bullpen. Steven Ridings is another guy that comes to mind, but it's been really good in that aspect of things. But he gives up a 1-out single to Haniger after having pitched a scoreless 5th. So it's a little unfair that Holmes is the one that gives up this earned run. But Licky comes on, and Licky, out of all of them lately, has probably struggled the most. And in both cases, Licky wasn't charged in Game 2 and in Game 4 in the series. He was really part of the Yankees losing the lead. And it wasn't all his fault. It was some bad defense. It was some, in this case, an inherited run, this and that. But Licky, it's been touch and go with Lucas Licky. But he gets a strike out of Seager. So, okay, you're thinking, all right, run on first 2 outs, and then it's a single for Ty France and an RBI single for Abraham Toro. So that gives the Mariners a 1-0 lead. And let's just go to the 8th. Now, along the way, I'm skipping over what was probably, and we'll talk about that more in Game 4, just a lot of missed opportunities for the Yankees. Although, in this game, I think it was just more so them being shut down by Marco Gonzalez completely. But in the bottom of the 8th, it would be Diego Castillo coming on, the former Ray, and Brett Gardner. this was the Brett Gardner night. So Brett Gardner pinch hits for Jonathan Davis and works a walk. The one thing I'll say about Brett Gardner is I'll give him credit for this. He is a tough out still. He's no longer the player that he once was, not even close. But he does have a penchant for really working the count, fouling it off. He's a bit tough to strike out at times. And even when he's down in the count, which he is a lot of the time, he really is, he's able to work it back. And he is gutsy and gritty, if nothing else. And he showed that in this series, and he showed that in this game. Brett Gardner gets a leadoff walk as a pinch hitter. Then DJ LeMahieu walks. Then Anthony Rizzo is hit by a pitch. Bases loaded, no out. Aaron Judge crushes one to left. Good enough for a sac fly. No runner scores, and it stays first and second. So it ties it up. Diego Castillo doesn't get the job done. 1-1. And then Giancarlo Stanton grabs into a double play. But Stanton would certainly redeem himself later. He would. Let's go to the 10th. Chad Green comes on. So Chad Green, who had given up a home run the night before in a 2-inning outing, would also give up a run here, but not earned. Like I always say when it comes to the top half of an inning and extra innings, you can afford to give up one. That's fine. And he would give up one. It would be a J.P. Crawford RBI single immediately. But then a really big Higashioka catch, strike him out, throw him out, where they throw Crawford out, caught stealing. So that's big. They keep it at 3-2. Sorry, at 2-1. Bottom of the 10th, Eric Swanson comes on. Eric Swanson was actually former Yankee property. He was traded to the Mariners in the James Paxton, Justice Sheffield trade. And he's had a pretty good season, Swanson. So keep in mind, you have Gardner on second, and LeMahieu gets the walk, first and second. Then Rizzo lines out to right. And, funny enough, with Rizzo this weekend, not the best before he went on the COVID list, so it actually wasn't really the best series for Anthony Rizzo. He didn't really do a whole lot. But he is usually good for making contact, which is very important. But in this case, it doesn't get it done. Then Aaron Judge strikes out. So the Yankees are down to their last out. Down 2-1. And Giancarlo Stanton, first pitch swinging, which he should do more often, pops it into right field for a base hit that scores Gardner. So Stanton, really clutch hit, down to their last out. And he's able to keep it going with a game-tying hit. Then, of course, Joey Gallo strikes out, because that's kind of what he does. So it is 2-2, and we head to the 11th, and Albert Abreu was great. Albert Abreu really does a great job, gives up no runs, which you put yourself in a great position there. Abreu has shown he got absolutely annihilated in that 14-0, whatever it was, loss to Tampa, Cole's last start. Other than that, he's actually been really good and shows a lot of potential. So Abreu comes through there in that top 11th, bottom of the 11th rolls around, and Glaber pops out. I was wondering maybe whether he would bunt in that situation. He's done that before. He didn't there. And I can understand reasonings as to why he didn't. Then Odor's intentionally walked, which is the absolute right move. Then Higashioka strikes out. Like I said, with Higashioka, some good and some bad in this series. And, ideally Sanchez would be in there. But who is the hero when it was needed? Because the Yankees, they were thin on pitchers. I don't know what they were going to do exactly, but Brett Gardner, walk-off RBI single, Gallo scores, and that's it. So another clutch win for the Yanks, and Gardner's the hero on this night. So we head to Game 3, and Game 3 might have been the best comeback of them all, actually, in terms of how much they were down. It was an earlier comeback than the other two, technically, but, you find out in this one that Chapman goes on the IL before this game. And so you really need length from Andrew Heaney. And Andrew Heaney, this was not a great outing for him, but give him credit that he battled through. When it looked like he was going to be toast and done early, he kind of settled down and kept the Yankees in the game. So I have to give him credit for that, because the first 2 innings were really bad for Heaney. Opposing him was another former Met. A lot of former Mets on the Mariners, apparently. Chris Flexen. So Chris Flexen would start off pretty good, but then he would struggle. But Heaney for the Yanks, and what does he do in the first inning? Gives up a home run. A Yankee Stadium lucky type home run for Kyle Seager, who again had a really good series, a 2-run shot for Seager, and it's like, okay, here we go again with Heaney. Here we go. But in the bottom of the first, it would be a solo shot from Aaron Judge. So Judge makes it 2-1, but not to be outdone in the top of the second. Heaney gives up 2 more. With 1 out, he walks Terens, then it's a double for Kelnick, then it's a walk to Moore, bases loaded. He then walks Toro. A bases loaded walk to Toro makes it 3-1. And then a sac fly by Haniger. And off the bat, it looked like it was hit pretty well. Pretty nice catch by Giancarlo Stanton, who in this game was out in right field. That makes it 4-1. And at this point, Heaney's pitch count was like over. He threw 40 pitches in that second inning. It was like over 50 pitches. Somehow he was able to make it through 6 and didn't give up a run after that. So, yeah, like he would actually strike out the side on the top of the 6th. So he ended up throwing 109 pitches, ends up with 9 strikeouts in 6 innings. I think with Heaney, it's going to be a lot of. I don't think he's a good fit for Yankee Stadium. That's the major problem here. But he has stuff to get guys out. It's a matter of the consistency. But he ends up getting his first Yankee win. The Yankees are down 4-1 in the 6th, and they put up a 4 spot. And here's how it happens. It is a leadoff single for Giancarlo Stanton. Like I said, really good series. And then Ruben Odor, who really has just been a pleasant surprise for this team, hits a really big short home run. Another one of those Yankee Stadium shots down the line. And he was on one knee, but it went out. It was a pretty interesting home run, and it made it 4-3. Then they bring on the lefty, Masevich, and Gardner would fly out. But then Gleyber Torres pinch hits for Tyler Wade, and this was the big play of the game to me, was Mitch Haniger just kind of trips on himself, falls in the right field corner, and it's a 3-base error. Gleyber makes it to third. Haniger, I'm not sure what happened. He fell, and then it would be Kyle Higashioka pinch hitting for Rob Brantley, and Higashioka, this is where he came through. Big ground rule double to tie the game up at 4. Then they bring on Casey Sadler. LeMahieu singles, but it's hit too hard, so Higashioka can't score. So it's first and third, 1 out. Anthony Rizzo is up. And look, I'll give Rizzo credit for making contact, but really he got lucky. He hits a ground ball to first, and inexplicably, Ty France steps on first. Now, if you're going to step on first there, go home. If you're going to step on first, go home. Or don't step on first and go for the 3-6-3 double play. Ty France did the worst thing he could have possibly did. He steps on first, and then Higashioka ends up scoring from third, and LeMahieu's kind of just caught in a rundown, and he eventually gets tagged out. And that would be the winning run. Really bad job there by the Mariners. And so it's 5-4 Yanks. And then in the 7th comes on Clay Holmes, strikes out the side. Clay Holmes, who in a way is kind of the Luis Cessa replacement in this pen, but it feels kind of different. Feels like they kind of like Holmes more than they like Cessa. And, really impressive stuff there. He would start the 8th and get a ground out, and then they would bring in the lefty Joely Rodriguez, and he was in the Gallo trade. He's also been pretty good himself. And Seager would strike out, then Tom Murphy singles, and then Fraley grounds out to Rodriguez. So it holds the lead. We head to the top of the 9th, and it'd be Jonathan Loaisiga. And Loaisiga, to me, has been the best pitcher, most consistent pitcher the whole season. What does he do? Throws a 1-2-3 inning. Stress-free. Up by 1, gets the job done. He can handle it. And you might see him with some save opportunities with Chapman on the shelf. I would assume it'll be a lot of Zach Britton, but don't be surprised if Loaisiga gets some chances here and there as well. So the Yankees with another big comeback win. They win at 5-4, and with that, they clinch another series victory. But as they normally do, they would lose the last game of a series, the failed sweep yet again, but it's a little more acceptable when you win the first 3 in this case. So Anthony Rizzo, it's announced that he is placed on the COVID list. So that's a bit of a bummer. Luke Voit comes back. Now, Voit was kind of a man left for dead, but with COVID being what it is, and especially into this Yankee team, you kind of knew that he was going to come back one way or another. And it was a rough Voit. Funny enough, I thought pretty good day fielding-wise from Voit, but really rough night at the plate. He probably shouldn't have been batting 5th. Gleyber has been pretty good lately. It wouldn't have hurt you if you put Gleyber 5th and Voit 6th, and it might have actually made a difference. So in this one, it was Luis Heel. Luis Heel. That's a find right there. That's another find. It's another specifically pitcher find where he looked really good. 5 innings, scoreless, baseball, 8 strikeouts. And I think there was some sort of stat where he's, 2 scoreless starts for him. As a Yankee with some type of record, tied for a record or something. It's been impressive. He's looked actually really good. I don't expect him to stay. just because a lot of guys are coming back. But I've liked what I've seen. And they would go against Kikuchi. Now Kikuchi was someone who I didn't fear that much, and I felt like the Yankees, it was missed opportunities. The Yankees today were 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position. Come on. You just can't do that. And it happens too often. 0 for 11. They had their chances against Kikuchi and couldn't get it done. Yeah, I mean, it's just missed opportunity after missed opportunity. That's what I'll talk about here. Heel does a good job. Let's talk about the second inning. Yes, the top of the second. Kelnick gets a leadoff, gets a 1-out single. Then Cal Riley hits the ground ball to Luke Voit, and this was not Voigt's fault. He throws it to second, and there was a shift on, and Torres and Odor didn't cover second. Someone had to be there, and they weren't. Probably Torres, but I'm not too sure. And the ball goes into the outfield, so it ends up being an error on Voit. It's first and third, 1 out. Then Jake Fraley walks, so it's bases loaded, 1 out. Then Dylan Moore, it's a 3-0 count. Heel fights back into the count, and on a full count, they call strike 3 on Moore. It was ball 4. The Yankees got lucky there. It was ball 4, but the ump said that it was strike 3. Then Jake Bauers grounds out to Voit on a play where I guess Heel was a little bit late getting over, and Voit takes it himself and kind of slides and with the ball in his glove, gloves first base, and shows a lot of emotion. It was a really nice play by Voit at the time. And so, it stays tied. Then bottom of the third is where, the Yankees have a bases loaded 2-out spot, and Luke Voit strikes out. Not a great looking at bat for Voit. I believe that was an at bat where the last pitch he swung at was in the dirt. Then in the fourth, Glaber gets leadoff single. Then Odor flies out. Then Glaber's still second. And on that steal, he jams his finger. And he's in clear discomfort. He would stay in the game until the ninth. They would take him out in the ninth, but he was clearly hurt all game. They probably should have pulled him, honestly. They really should have. And I'm not sure if people are going to talk about that or whatever. I'm sure he wanted to stay in, but it didn't look good. And it's too bad because it was a steal where he was in by a mile. It was one of those things where I think they tried to pick him off at first, and he just got a jump, and it's such an innocuous play. It's too bad. But yeah, the Yankees end up not scoring that inning. Then in the fifth again, it's Voit with a first and second 2-out opportunity and pops out. I mean, you really could have, used Glaber or even Odor in those situations. Bottom of the sixth was really their last truly good opportunity. Torres single, Odor hit by pitch, and then Higashioka pops out. That was the spot there where you got to have him bunt. He tried to bunt the first pitch and pulled it back. I don't know why. And then he ends up popping out. He needed to do that there. And then Gardner pinch hits for Jonathan Davis. And they bring in Paul Sewald at that point. And he strikes Gardner out. And then LeMahieu strikes out. So that was a big, big opportunity missed right there. And by the way, Wandy Peralta pitches a scoreless sixth for Heel. And then in the seventh, Steven Ridings gets strikes out the side. Steven Ridings from Long Island, this tall ginger, has been unbelievably good. Then the top of the eighth, it's Lucas Licky. And what happens to start it out? Abraham Toro, it's a ground ball to third baseman Rougned Odor, who it's a bad error. But also, LeMahieu clearly is in not great shape that he is still playing second base and Odor is playing third. That speaks to the fact that LeMahieu is not 100%. And I'm not going to make excuses for him in terms of what he's done at the plate, but more to the point, just a little concerning there that Odor has never played third base in Major League Baseball until recently, until the last week. So I'm upset with Odor because it was a makeable play, but I'm also upset by the fact that he shouldn't really be in this position anyway. But you knew that was going to come back to bite, and especially when Licky walked Mitch Haniger. Then it would be a ground rule RBI double for Kyle Seager. Makes it 1-0. Then he would strike out Ty France, and then Kelnick strikes out looking on a pitch that was absolutely ball 4. Licky got lucky. Kelnick got tossed. And so did Scott Service, the Mariners manager. Again, the Yankees, at that point, the Yankees pitchers were catching breaks. But then Licky has Cal Riley 0-2, 1-0 game, and he gives up a smash hit, scores a run, but then Gallo would throw out Seager at the plate. So instead of 3-0, it's 2-0, but still, Licky, the runs are unearned, so no earned runs in this game. This is a 2-0 Mariner win, no earned runs because of the Odor error. But again, Licky, it's not been amazing for him. And then, the ninth goes to Albert Abreu, pitches a scoreless top of the ninth, and the bottom of the ninth, Higashioka ground out. Gardner does get an infield single. Then LeMahieu rounds out, but it was hit so softly that Gardner moves to second, and then Aaron Judge strikes out looking to end the game. Not how you want to end the game, striking out looking. But Yankees get shut out. But overall, it's good. They win 3 out of 4. They have to withstand COVID list and the injured list. It's mounting in a major way. So next is a road trip to Kansas City, then a Field of Dreams game with the White Sox, and then a traditional couple of games with the White Sox. So that is what is next this week. A little Central Division opponent week. And it'll be Tyone, who kind of feels like the ace right now, Jameson Tyone, against Carlos Hernandez. Game 2 will feature Nestor Cortez against lefty Daniel Lynch, he was young and had a really rough season. And then TBD for the Yankees on the third game, and then it'll be against Brady Singer, who was a highly touted prospect who has struggled recently, but he has good stuff. But this won't be easy. Kansas City's actually a really good home team. I wouldn't sleep on them. The Yankees, barely won 2 out of 3 at home against them. I would be thrilled if the Yankees just win the series, right? Win 2 out of 3, I'll be very happy with that, no matter how they do it. You heard it here first. I mean, will I be upset if it's one of those things where they win the first 2 and then lose that classic, sort of afternoon getaway game day on the last game of the series? Yeah, I probably will be, but again, you'll take 2 out of 3, which will then lead into the Field of Dreams game, which should be really cool to see against the White Sox, which will provide a whole different test. But every game is important now for the Yankees. Every series is important to win. And we have a playoff race on our hands here in August. And it's going to be fun to see how this turns out.